Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us today in this panel discussion on blockchain in academia. I feel glad today because I have three beautiful ladies joining me in this panel discussion. I have
Lucky you, Marinos.
thank you. I have Angeliki, Dedopoulou, Soulla, Louca, and Veronika, Kütt. Angeliki works in the European Union on affairs and the department. Soulla, Louca is a director at the University of Nicosia, director on IFF on partnerships, and before that she was leading the MSc on blockchain and digital currency. And Veronika works for Frankfurt Business School on the blockchain center. She's a blockchain enthusiastic and a mathematician, I think, yeah? I think that one of the main things that we need to discuss today is how to scale adopt the blockchain technology. And I think we need to focus our discussion on three main issues. One should be the adoption, the regulation, and sourcing. In my opinion, I believe that without adoption, we cannot further push and widespread the use of this technology. We need universities and academia to work on education programs. We need training and awareness to better understand the impact of the technology to create the right skills. We also need the regulators to focus on shaping the new regulatory framework along with the industry experts and the policymakers, of course. And last but not least, we have to pay attention on the sourcing, because this is a very, very interesting and very critical issue. Since if we don't have the people with the right skills, we cannot expand our business. To this end, I would like to start the discussion, and I would like to ask Angeliki about the challenges that policymakers face today regarding blockchain technology and education.
Thank you, Marino. Actually, just for a clarification, I'm working as an advisor to the European Commission for the digital labor market. It's fine. So, indeed, actually, when it comes to blockchain technology, policymakers actually face a couple of challenges. I will just aim actually a few. So first, actually, the first challenge is from the lack of know-how. So it's really difficult, first of all, to understand the technology, how it functions, how actually to apply some legislative procedures in order actually to make the technology sustainable in different member states. And at the same time, actually, it comes also a bit in contrast with the General Data Protection Law that has been recently established by the European Union, which, of course, we know that everything that goes into the blockchain cannot be deleted. So it's actually against the principle the right to be forgotten from GDPR. So policymakers should actually focus and find alignments and, hopefully, to do some amendments on this regulation in order to actually the technology to be compliant with GDPR.
Interesting, and I think it would be good if we have some more insights on how to overcome the barrier of GDPR in the blockchain area. Veronika, how does blockchain affect the academic programs, in your opinion?
I think it's a new technology, and as we heard very often at the moment, I think the general knowledge of the functioning of this technology and the use cases that can actually spring out of it are very unclear. So I think it's important. For me, blockchain will enable something that we used to call the Internet of Value. So I think it will be present in every area of life. So I think every academic course will actually kind of include part of that technology in the future. I think it's, yeah.
Soulla, same question?
Well, thank you, Marino, because now I can refer back to my experience that I've had to face the past 5 years. Thank God you took over last year. So, but there is a point here that you said, Veronika, that we will need to embed blockchain into the existing courses. But I think here I'm going to disagree, because what we need to do is actually create new courses, a whole new curriculum to be able to satisfy the needs that we have. And when we try to do this as a university, as any actually training organization, trying to include new courses, new curriculum, this means that the universities, the training centers will have to invest into several resources. And when I'm talking about resources, I do not only refer to money, capital, but also in terms of human resources. And something else that Angeliki has also mentioned, the knowledge, the required know-how, which is actually hard to find even nowadays, because we have been in this space and we have been running these different types of programs for 5 years. But still, we see that when we're looking into hiring new people in the area, it's still difficult to find the right people with the right expertise.
And if I can actually very quickly intervene on this, I will totally agree with Soulla. And I think that when we define curricula in universities and even for courses of non-formal and formal learning, it's very important to take also into consideration the labor market and the skills. So for me, actually, in order to bridge the gap between the education and the labor market, we need, when we define actually curricula, we need always to look also what's happening into in the skills, let's say, area.
Coming back to the same thing about the skills, in your opinion, how the job market is affected by blockchain technology, and what kind of new skills or new job descriptions we can see in this area? Soulla?
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, one of the things that we need to consider is that new skills and new jobs that companies will be requiring, because our job is to train people for the workforce. It's probably jobs that we do not even know what they are nowadays. So what we need to do is actually give them the foundations. The foundations in terms of technical courses, from private to public blockchains to permission and permissionless blockchains, programming smart contracts, and also courses including business, finance, use cases. So we need to be looking into all these different courses, even regulation, because we know that at least most of the governments will have to focus on some sort of a legal framework. So they will need the experts also for this area as well.
And if I can actually quickly react on this, another important element that we should take also into consideration is the use of European standards around skills. I will actually name, for example, ESCO, which is the European Skills, Competencies, Qualifications and Occupations classification of the European Commission, which actually tries to enhance the bridge between the education and the labor market, and shows what are the skills needed and qualifications for an individual to find a job, not only in his or her country, but also abroad. So a strong cooperation of different types of stakeholders, use of European standards and frameworks, I think it's the key to reskill and upskill people.
Excellent. Veronika, from your expertise as also as a manager in research projects, we see that there is a lot of work done in the European Union in regards of a research funding project on blockchain and also awareness activities and so on. Would you like to report your own experience from running a project on this area?
Yeah, at the moment we're running, I think you're referring to Blockpool, which is an EU-funded project. It's funded through the Horizon 2020 program. And it's trying to foster blockchain adoption for SMEs in the European Union. We just started the project in July. We're going to set up like a deployment pool where SMEs can get funding and can get support, like business support, legal support, and on all kinds of areas. to be able to implement blockchain projects in their businesses. And a big part of that is actually also the education. I think University of Nicosia will play a big role in that, with training developers and the CEOs of the SMEs in blockchain, on blockchain topics. And I think an overall goal is in general to have a better network and learn from each other and from the experience. Because as we said so far, at the moment, we don't really exactly know where all this is heading. I think we always should be conscious about that. It's like 1995 when the internet kind of slowly became mainstream. Yeah, at that point, hardly anyone could imagine like that the way we interact through social media nowadays. So I think we should be very careful these days to be too specific about like where exactly this blockchain technology will lead us. But as Soulla said, it's very important to really teach the very fundamental modules of the technology, which is like public and private blockchain, permissioned and unpermissioned. This is one of the really, really big things. And like Ramesh, who gave the keynote like half an hour ago, he also said there are like these different boxes of areas, and they all get mixed up. And I think at the moment we really should focus on teaching the fundamentals and make sure that those are clear. Yeah.
Soulla, would you like to elaborate based on your experience on running a project on the same area too?
Yes, actually, the past year, we have been running a project, an Erasmus project called DLT for All. And the whole story started back a couple of years ago when we submitted the proposal. And we realized that for the general public, even though there was a lot of material online, it was too scattered around, and there was not anything focused on specific courses. So what we decided to do at the time, it's 8 partners that we are collaborating in this project. We submitted in Erasmus a proposal for preparing material for the general public, but mainly targeting entrepreneurs, students, researchers, and incubator managers to prepare some courses on blockchain and DLTs. So these courses, they range from smart contracts to dApps to peer-to-peer databases. So, and each one of us is preparing one of these courses. They will be offered online and in a blended form, and even face-to-face workshops.
Thank you. Angeliki, there is some work that is done on the new Europass. Would you like to tell us your point of view regarding the digital signed credentials infrastructure that is developed?
Yes. So actually, all of you, I guess, you know the Europass CV, a long document, which is most of the time static and long. And it consists actually of a portfolio of 5 documents. The European Commission actually wanted to make it more modernized and more fit for purpose for the digital labor market. And this is why I actually introduced the new Europass. The new Europass decision has been actually voted by the European Parliament in 2018. And actually, job seekers and individuals can showcase easily their skills and qualifications. And it consists actually of a portfolio, which is similar actually to our LinkedIn profile. It's another section which is called information provision, where actually job seekers and individuals can find information on job opportunities and training opportunities. And also another section which is called Europass Digital Sign Credentials. So as part of the digital sign credentials, actually it's an infrastructure that universities can use to issue digital diplomas. We call them credentials because actually it's a combination of skills and qualifications, and the framework actually, the vision of the framework is not focusing only on formal qualifications, so qualifications that comes from higher education, but also for qualifications that come from non-formal and formal learning contexts, like for example, it can be an employment attestation, or it can be actually some certificates from volunteering exercise, and so on. So with this infrastructure, the individual can actually use the digital credential to store it into a portfolio, so that can apply for jobs online. Or can actually share it in real time with employers or with the training institution for further learning. At the same time, the university can verify that indeed the person is the credential owner, is the owner of this digital diploma. But also an employer can verify that the digital credential is not revoked, is not expired, in order actually to prevent diploma mills. We have a very big problem in Europe and in general in our world, that we have many fake diplomas. So the European Commission, with this infrastructure, first we like to ensure compatibility between different digitalization initiatives, because we have different actually solutions, and I will name also some afterwards, and at the same time to prevent fraud. So, for example, this solution can be help an employer that receives, from Malta, for example, that receives a digital diploma from Cyprus, to understand the learning outcomes of these digital diplomas, to understand and compare the qualification of the Maltese qualification with the Cypriot one, at the same time to verify that indeed the credential owner is the one that she or he claims, and also the verification process that I described before with the digital, let's say, general infrastructure of the diplomas.
I think there is a very interesting initiative that is taken. My question is about whether you use blockchain technology to build this new infrastructure, or is it just digital?
We actually, indeed, we intend to use blockchain technology. So as part of this infrastructure, the Commission develops an accreditation database. So it's actually a database which contains formal information and formal qualifications that comes from national qualification database of each member state. And this information, actually, we store it into a public blockchain. More specifically, we use Ethereum to actually verify the accreditation status of universities. We are very well aware, and it's something that I also mentioned at the beginning, of GDPR. So we don't want to store into the blockchain personal data. The only information we share actually is the URI. It's the link, the hash of the link of the diplomas, of the digital diplomas, which contains information on the name of the awarding body, and the name of the institution, and the name of the diploma.
Excellent. And how do you deal with the revocation process? Let's say that we have a lady who is getting married and would like to have two names on her diploma.
So in this case, actually, we also store the revocation list of these digital diplomas into the blockchain. Again, with attention to the personal data, we have a special code that comes along with each digital diploma, and we only actually share this code into the blockchain.
Can anybody do some testing with this or experimentation? I don't know, maybe Veronika's team would like to participate, or other teams from other universities may be interested in help you with the testing process, etc.
So actually, at the moment, we're piloting this solution with 16 countries, so 15 member states plus Norway. We have actually several universities on board. We also have some institutions that also issue vocational education training diplomas. We have with us also a representative of EOPEP, Mr. Papaioannou, that can also elaborate a bit more how they tend to use it. And so the moment until the end of the year, we will focus on formal qualifications, so formal institutions. But our vision, of course, is to include also some vendors. Some actually also like private companies that can use, because at the end, this solution is compatible and can be used by any type of stakeholder, let's say, that would like to issue digital credentials. We're also in close discussions with some universities, also with the University of Nicosia and Mr. also Nicolaou from Block.io. So we're in continuous discussion of how to, let's say, make this infrastructure also not available only on formal educations, but also to other institutions and companies.
Excellent, thank you very much. Veronika, we know that blockchain is disruptive in nature, it's a kind of technology. In your opinion, does this have any implications in terms of managing the blockchain technology? Do we need to have more customized courses focusing on and explaining this nature to the public, to the students?
Yeah, like I said, I think, again, relating to the talk of Ramesh, I think this ecosystem is slowly becoming bigger, and I think we'll have more specialized courses. I mean, also in connection to Decentralized conference, the day before there was like a full day workshop on Hyperledger offered. There was another like full day workshop on Corda by R3 offered, and I think in general we'll see a more specialized evolution of the academic courses, and also like, yeah, the split between permissioned and unpermissioned blockchains. I mean, I'm mainly focusing on Bitcoin and second layer solutions and like Lightning Network, and just to be honest, just to focus on Bitcoin, you could do like a very like a week-long specialized training, yeah, and I think this we'll see an evolution of the courses in a more specialized way, yeah.
Soulla, we see that slowly many universities are joining the blockchain area by offering courses or programs of studying on blockchain technology. We had the first one in 2014 with your university, and then in 2018 we have another 2 programs on this topic, and then this year we had 8 or 9 new. So discussing about this issue, what do you expect to see in the next coming years, and why we didn't have, let's say, more programs in a shorter period? Why shall we wait for 5 years, I mean, to start offering programs to the students on this topic?
Well, I believe, as I said earlier, one of the reasons is that it's not that easy to launch such new programs right now, because of the fact that we are referring to totally new curriculums, totally new courses, and there is still a lack of knowledge within this area, within the experts themselves, and it is really hard to find people to actually teach these courses. And also, I think there is another challenge that is kind of twofold here. From one side, we have the companies that they're aware of these different types of technologies, but they're not sure yet how to use them. What benefits can they get? What is the competitive advantage for them if they start using blockchain technologies? And then they do not really know, on one hand, what they want. On the other hand, the universities, they need to train people on helping these companies. So we have some sort of a gap here that we need to bridge.
Excellent. Angeliki, what role the blockchain will play in the Europe Pass Digital, the one you mentioned before, in terms of credential infrastructure?
Yeah, actually, I also mentioned we will use blockchain technology, Ethereum public blockchain, to store the accreditation status of universities, together also with the revocation list of.
Would you like to tell us a few things about ESCO?
Yes, actually, ESCO is an initiative of DG Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion. Stands for European Skills, Competencies, Qualifications and Occupations. We have also some implementers here, ODEM, for example, that had a speech before. So ESCO is actually has 3 main pillars, so the Skills and Competencies pillar, the Occupation pillar and the Qualification pillar, with information on skills and qualifications. At the moment, we have information of more than 3,500 occupations, concepts of occupations, and around 14,000 skills and competencies. So the Commission, with this classification, wanted actually to bridge the gap between the education and the labor market. And the main, let's say, use of ESCO is EURES, which is the European Network of Public Employment Services. And for this, actually, there is a EURES regulation that shows that, and in a way foresees that member states that do not have a national level a classification system, they need to adopt ESCO nationally. Or in case that they have a classification system, and this actually, we have some countries that they have, like for example, France, they have their own classification, Germany, Berufenet, they need to link actually their skills or the occupational classification with ESCO. More specifically, they need to exchange correspondent tables for the better exchange of information of job vacancies and CVs between the different public employment services. So it's available in 27 languages, the 24 EU languages plus Icelandic, Norwegian and Arabic. And it's really useful and, let's say, helps individuals to identify what are the skills needed for a specific occupation. So for example, if someone is a lawyer in Greece and would like to find a job in France, thanks to ESCO, can identify what are the qualifications needed and what are the skills in order to become a lawyer. At the same time, in ESCO, there is also information on regulatory aspects. So you can, the individual can find, thanks to a regulated database run from DG GROW of the Commission, what are the regulations that are existing national and European law for someone to exercise this profession. So as we can see, actually, it's very rich and helps not only member states, but also companies to provide human resources solutions for the upskilling, reskilling of people, of their staff, and at the same time also universities to define curricula or to provide career guidance to students.
Thank you. Soulla, based on your experience for running this MSc program for the last 5 years on blockchain, of course, there is a number of graduates that finished this program. And what can you tell us about the change, if there is any, in their career path? Did the program have a real impact in make them change in their career?
Sure, yes. Actually, in relation to our students, what we have observed over the past years is that it was not the usual traditional student that we have at the universities. One of the things that we had observed, it was professionals, established professionals, that they just wanted to learn more about the technologies and cryptocurrencies. And these professionals actually were coming from a variety of backgrounds, ranging from bankers to business people to even people with technical background, even to medical doctors, actually. We have graduates that are medical doctors, and they're actually using the technology in their area. The other interesting thing that we have observed is that we have about now around 200 graduates. Based on a survey that we have conducted recently, about 57% of them, they have actually changed careers. They shifted their careers and they moved into a blockchain-based environment for their career.
Do you have any idea about the job they're doing now? Are there programmers? What kind of job?
Programmers, and also quite a few of them have started their own jobs. Startups.
Startups.
Yep.
Veronika, how do you expect, I mean, in your opinion, what will be the market in terms of the job and the labor market in the coming years, and what kind of changes can we expect in the area in relation to the blockchain education?
To be honest, like I said, I think blockchain will be enabling a lot of our processes in the future. If we look at IoT, for example, when we have devices having wallets, this will be running on blockchain-based systems. So, and I think blockchain and cryptocurrencies are going to be present in every aspect of life. So I think every job kind of will be related to that in a way, and therefore I think this is going to be really, really big and really changing. Like the internet completely changed the way how we interact and how we access and distribute information. Nowadays, everything I learned in the last 3 years, I mean, there are hardly any courses on Bitcoin or blockchain 3 years ago when I started getting into the topic. Yeah, and so the information I got about the topic is available to pretty much every person on this planet, and in the next 5 to 7 years, pretty much we'll have like coverage, internet coverage all over the world, and pretty much everyone will have like a smartphone. I still remember when I was like 10 years ago, I backpacked in India, and people had nothing, really, literally nothing sitting on the street, but pretty much everyone had a phone. Yeah, a very basic phone, even more than the people in Germany at that time. What was really like impressive to me, and so I think it won't take long until everyone has a smartphone, will have internet coverage. So this is what happened with the internet to information. What is happening with blockchain is copy and paste, but with value. Yeah, so the courses, the job market, everything related to that, it's going to be huge. You can already see that it's like at the moment, if you have knowledge in blockchain topics, especially if you're a developer, it's like you can choose from the jobs. And we already had this discussion about like, oh, is AI and is blockchain taking away our jobs? On one hand, yes, definitely. The jobs that are like repetitive, that are like copy-pasting information, that are doing repetitive tasks in all kinds of sorts, yeah, or that are just checking some thing which a sensor can actually do in the future. So these jobs will become way less. But the opportunities, blockchain technology, and in general that we have in the future are ginormous. They're bigger than anything we've seen, but to be honest, it has to be very like skilled and specialized people. I think to be honest, it's a hand. We're talking about decentralization on one hand, and I'm really enthusiastic about that. That's why I'm also really enthusiastic about Bitcoin, because I think this is the biggest evolutionary step, technologically wise, that we can take at the moment in regards of decentralization. But
if I may add to what Veronika has said, something else again from my experience with the master's degree and our students is that, okay, I have been in academia all my life, and over the years with our graduates, we had to go out to companies and basically assist our students to find jobs. Here, it was totally the opposite. What was happening, we had companies coming to us and asking for our students to be employed by them. And also, we have another course that is free to everybody. It was running for 12 weeks. And we had students being hired in the blockchain space by just taking that one course. So, and also another thing that I would like to add to what Veronika has said is that in order to be able to actually build this ecosystem, be able to adopt these different technologies, what we're going to require is a culture shift. Because we're moving from what we knew as the norm right now, the centralization, to the decentralization. So a culture shift will be required, especially by us, the older people, to be able to do this. It will probably come much easier for the younger generations, but for us, it's going to take some effort.
Actually, indeed, I will agree both with Soulla and Daniela that actually, Veronika, sorry, with so many names, that indeed actually blockchain will disrupt many industries, also education. But at the end, actually, we have to see it a bit like electricity. So we cannot really see how electricity works. It's really something invisible, but we can see actually concretely the functions of electricity in our life. Thanks to electricity, we have our fridge functioning, we have TV, we have the light. So I think the key is to, by applying the technology and seeing actually applied in different use cases, there we will see actually the real value of the blockchain technology.
Is it time to talk about disruption in academia? We're in a decentralized conference. What about having decentralized universities?
Good question. The biggest decentralized university I'd call the internet. What I also see, which is like a result of the upcoming of the Internet of Information, I call it now, is that we're actually seeing a big rise of people like teaching them in an autodidact way. Yeah, especially in that ecosystem, like I said, like I began, it was just there were no courses online, yeah, and but sure, I think universities in general, and this is what I think is doing University of Nicosia very, very well. I met a couple of people here that are doing the Master of Cryptocurrency at the moment, and they're very like excited about it. They really recommend it, and what they said also is like interesting that you start having these like online the exams, how they are taking. Yeah, so I see that you're actually taking a step into decentralizing, and I think in the future we will also see like courses being stuck together by experts all around the world, kind of, yeah, which is not just done by one institution, and yeah.
Well, actually, I love the idea of a decentralized university, but what this actually means, it will mean that what we call the norm today, it's not going to be that anymore. So a lot of things will have to change, from accreditation to examination, probably to the way we are offering our courses. So we are looking into a whole shift into the education sector. And if this is going to be done, it has to be done very carefully. I'm fully for it, but we need to be careful how we implement it.
Actually, I will agree, and I will just compliment on this. At the end, we need to open our education. We should actually go a bit away of this formal institution and formal, let's say, way of describing qualifications. We need to bring employers closer to the education system, help the institution, the education institution and universities to define curricula. Because at the end, we need to understand the needs of the labor market, and when a graduate leaves the university, he or she should be able actually to find a job. And this is very critical, and it's something very problematic. We have nowadays more than 2 million jobs that are not filled because simply employers cannot identify the right people with the right skills. So by bringing the education closer to the labor market, it's the only actually way to achieve this.
Since we're talking about a model shift, or in this area, what kind of advice can you give to policymakers in this regard?
Regarding education, in general, I think policymakers need to be aware that the world is changing rapidly, and they should try not to put hurdles in the way of, too much. On the other hand, it's very, very important to have proper regulation. But I think Angeliki can probably say way more about that.
Yes, actually, yes. When it comes to policy making at the end and regarding qualifications, as we know, qualifications are in the competence of the member states. So, for example, the European Commission cannot really intervene. There's a subsidiarity principle that actually, it's in a way, it's not aligned with involving of this. But what, for example, policymakers should do is to put to organize some working groups, some peer learning activities, bringing together different types of stakeholders, bringing also the private sector on this. I think the inclusion of also private qualifications and the training providers will be very key to this effort. And yeah, try indeed to adapt to the changes, to the constant changes of the digital labor market. Because as Veronika said, actually there is a huge evolution in the context of jobs and qualifications nowadays.
Soulla?
Well, usually when I'm being asked this question, I say we need to bring all the different stakeholders together, from the public, the private sector, semi-public, just bring all of them together. Do we have any policymakers in here? Okay, Panikos is a friend, so. So what I'm going to say, I think we don't need policymakers.
Well,
yeah, just, we need to sit down as universities, as training centers, as organizations, companies, the various industries, and sit down and identify what are their needs, what we can offer them, and bridge this gap that exists. So, this is my answer.
Very good answer. Thank you very much. Any final comment before opening the discussion and taking some questions from the audience?
No, that actually what I could say is that in general there are many use cases that are also come, except of the financial sector, also now in other sectors of the economy, including education. So again, I think that what is needed is a strong cooperation of all related actors. We need, in my opinion, to, let's say, open the education and make it more accessible, more affordable, easier to be reached. And this can be achieved, for example, with massive online courses. University of Nicosia doing a great job on this. So I think that we should really understand all these changes that are around us and try to adapt.
And I think not underestimate what is coming. Because I feel like what is going, if we look at the development of the internet, like, I mean, I have to watch the videos. I didn't consciously see the changes, but 1995, if I look like videos where they are interviewing experts on what is the internet. This is like 25 years ago. They were talking about like a distributed network, and you need that modem connected to this, and then you have to do this and that and that. And I think if people heard that, they were like, wow, I will never ever use this internet kind of thing. This is only for tech-savvy people. So, and in 25 years now we're carrying around like supercomputers with like 512 gigabytes. I think the new iPhone has something old, yeah. Streaming videos, and I think the pace of evolution, what we saw in 25 years with the Internet of Information, we'll see probably maybe in 12 years with the Internet of Value, because we have the Internet of Information as an underlying network already, and we have a huge bunch of developers that are not trained, especially in programming languages, in these smart contracting programming languages and alike. But this is just, they just have to add that to their knowledge. And the speed of disruption is gonna be something that we haven't seen before, I feel like. So not underestimate what's coming.
Soulla, any final thought?
Well, yes, I would say that we need to look into the different types of technologies and how we can put them together, because in order to build all these different use cases, we do not only need blockchains. We do need blockchains, but at the same time, we need technologies like artificial intelligence, IoT. So the power and the benefits that we can have is when all these technologies work together, looking into the synergies of them. So synergies between the different technologies.
Mm-hmm.
From my point of view, I think many times we need to understand what we're talking I was recently in a conference. I attended 100 papers on presentations on blockchain technology, and my opinion was that blockchain was only needed in 20% of all those cases, because everybody hears something about blockchain, they're going, they implement it, and then if you ask, why do you need blockchain in this case, they don't know why. Okay, so first of all, we need to understand what we're talking about, and then go and implement it, and attend the right courses to get the skills and support our companies. We're happy now to take some questions from the audience. Alexis?
Thank you to the ladies for the very insightful conversation. Firstly, I'd like to state that I'm part of that 57% statistic that Soulla mentioned, and I'm very proud of it. Question to Angeliki, and it's something we have discussed in the past, but I will explain why I come back to it. Did you actually get consultation from the European Union as to your decision for not posting details of students on the blockchain? And I will explain why I ask this. In a chat I had last night with Eva Kaili, and Marinos was there. And my question was, how come legislation that has data sovereignty as a core objective put a brake on a technology that can actually help it achieve that data sovereignty? And her reply was, this was not meant to be a blanket legislation to cover all, but simply to protect against, and she stressed the word, large organizations taking advantage and misusing that information for their own benefit, which obviously is not the case when it comes to your case. So have you consulted them? Have you actually got, are you absolutely sure that there will not come a point where you will have to come back and add that detail as to what you have already processed on the blockchain?
So regarding actually the decisions on what type of technology we'll use and for which reason, the only thing, let's say, that we are interested in at the moment is this decentralized approach, so that employers can have access to these credentials to verify them if they're actually expired, they're revoked, and so on. For this, we're actually making a use of the SEF Connected Europe Facility building blocks of DigiConnect. These are some free tools and the software works actually based on the EIDAS regulation about data protection and so on, and identification. So at the moment, we will also use part of infrastructure of the European blockchain infrastructure of DigiConnect. We are not really, let's say, and feel actually that we should consult, for example, the European Parliament on this. At the end, it's a decision. We have a specific working group, the Europa's advisory group, which actually consult the member states and their needs before we implement the solution. It's something that has been decided by the group, by the member states, and we have to stick on this. As I said before, qualifications and everything that has to do with qualifications is actually under the competence of the member states. We follow their decisions and their needs. But thank you for your comment. It's very interesting.
Hi, I'm Alexis from Escuela Blockchain Venezuela. Well, a couple of weeks ago we made our first meetup of Decentralized there, and there was a question of one of the students. You talk about the internet of University of Internet, and one of the guys asked us what is really good to keep studying. Is really good this? Because, well, Venezuela is suffering one of the worst crises in the world. I can understand that, but there are too many information and too few at the same time, okay? And what should you tell them to the student that traditional ways, traditional careers, that they don't have to study anymore because they can find anything on the internet? What should you tell them?
What do you mean?
To the students that ask that, come on, why do you have to study the same traditional careers? Okay, because they already asking. Well, in this year, in 2020, the millennials are going to be the 50% of the working hand of the world. Okay, so what do you have to tell them? Because traditional careers are not going to exist anymore. What we do in the blockchain world. Okay, what should you tell them?
Okay. Well, they shouldn't forget that when studying, they get the foundations. They start thinking in a different way. You know, what Liz referred to before is critical thinking. They have other skills that they can be utilized to retrain themselves for what they're going to need for their future jobs. So this is one of the things that, and they should keep their mind occupied in the sense that their mind should be trained continuously. So.
I think it's not only this. We can see a shift in the way we educate the students in the area of blockchain. We can see a huge diversity of different courses that are offered to the students. In our MSc, for instance, we have courses focusing on business, on how to manage the technology and deal with the disruptive nature. We have courses on regulation and law and policy, other courses on accounting and finance and taxation, how to deal in the blockchain area era with all these issues, and of course hardcore programming courses. So we see that there is a transformation in the way we deliver the knowledge to the students, and we put together different pieces of a puzzle to give them a new and fresh insight of all these different things that they have to have in mind before starting a new job.
Is it? So, hello, my name is Spiros Papaioannou. I would like to share my experience concerning blockchain and digitally signed credentials. I represent Greece in a Europass advisory group of European Commission, and I work for the organization OPEP of the Ministry of Education, and we are in a project, in a pilot project, in order to transfer our paper form degrees that we award to students to a digitalized form. The last 2 years we issued around 13,000 degrees of vetted in the vet field, because we organized the exams concerning the Vocational Education and Training Institute, EEC, and we award the degree named Diploma of EEC, Diploma EEC. And well, the administrative burden that we experience all these years in order to organize the exams, to organize the passing or the failing degree, and also to finally issue the degree is tremendous. So we found the solution to enter to this pilot project in order to transfer our paper-based awarded degrees to digitally signed degrees. So it is a matter of decision for every organization. If they want to, if they decide to enter to the world of blockchain, and if you decide to enter to the world of blockchain, you have to transfer your degrees, since we speak about the education industry, to digitalized ones. And finally, it is going to be an easy step, because it is an easy step to offer to a specialized company, a company that specializes to blockchain, to give her all of the data of the students, to organize and to decide on a specific form of a digitalized degree, and then that specialized company to transfer your data and your metadata to digitalized form. that will gain a tremendous advantage of the end user, that is the graduate, that he or she will have on his ability to find a job in a very easy way, not just a job in the country that he studied, but also, I think, in all the European members union countries or other countries of the world. As I said, it is a matter of decision of every awarding body to enter to this blockchain community, and it would be a great advantage for this awarding body. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the comment. I think it's not only the university that should pay attention on this. There are many multiple sectors and organizations that need to focus on the blockchain verifiable certificates, because the problems we have in these areas are really enormous. Any other question, please, before we go for lunch? Yes.
So I'm coming back to this question of governance with regards to the awarding bodies. So it should be a kind of a mechanism to guarantee that the awarding bodies who they say they are when they are issuing the certification, the degree. Any work that is happening in regards to this governance model in Europe?
So at least regarding our infrastructure, what we do is
who is certifying the awarding bodies?
So there are several centers called UNIC, NARIC in several member states, who actually decide on the accreditation and assessment and quality assurance of the education institutions. And there is also a European network where actually all these centers, they meet and exchange information about the different national systems regarding to accreditation. In particular, for our actually infrastructure, we make use of the EIDAS regulation, and more specifically, actually institutions, in order to be compliant with our framework, they need to use e-seal, which is actually an electronic seal. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Which actually guarantees the integrity and origin of the institution.
Exactly, because at the practical level, at some point, when you issue a transaction to the Ethereum blockchain, let's say, for example, the address of the contract or the client that is issuing that transaction is recorded. And during the verification stage of a certificate, that address needs to match to a real entity, to a certified, verified entity.
Yes. In this regard, we actually will not use proof of work, but proof of authority. So actually, yes, the nodes
private version of the
exactly, and the nodes actually will be able to validate only the transaction, not run the work.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Last question.
This is again a question related to the governance. You said that we need to have an awarding or bodies that will accredit the degree, right? So we need to have the university, for example, and the student. Then we need to have an accreditation body who will be responsible in validating these degrees and assuring that it is working properly, right? Okay, isn't this against the idea of a blockchain? Because a blockchain is supposed to be a communication between two parties or two parts. So why should you have an accreditation body in between? This would be like a third party who is responsible.
Yeah. It should be something there to govern it. It might be an algorithmic kind of entity to do it, but it should be a governance model. I'm not sure how to do it, but yeah.
Yeah, actually, just to react on this, what we want to ensure, what blockchain actually help us to ensure is interoperability actually, and this decentralized approach of communication between the different education systems and the world of education in general. Of course, at the same time, we want to actually to prevent diploma mills. We have actually something on the blockchain. Is if it's very easy to trace it, to in a way track it and quality assure it. But it depends also the use case, and it's again up to the member states to decide where blockchain will be used. So I agree with you that in a way the whole idea of decentralization and blockchain is a bit contradictory of what you described, but unfortunately the current, let's say, governance and decisions are the ones that are.
It is what it is.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you very much for coming to this panel discussion. We will be glad to take any more questions during the lunch break that is at the conference downstairs. So we are looking forward to discuss more about these topics in a few seconds with you. Thank you very much, and thank you very much to Angeliki, Soulla, and Veronika for joining.